Hi everybody, I'm Poppy.
I'm Ditto.
I'm Serena.
And I'm Lemon, and this is a Witch's Brew.
Welcome back, everybody. We have a special guest today. Do you want to introduce yourself, special guest, or do you want me to do it?
Hello, my
There
name
he
is Lugh. You might also hear me called him. That's perfectly fine as well. I've broken into this podcast and I'm not leaving until I teach him about mythology.
And that's our topic.
Oh, perfect segue. Actually, that was probably the best segue we've ever had.
Honestly.
I just wanted to go like, we're going right in.
Our segues
No
have
Harry
not been
Potter,
the greatest.
no segues.
Our segues have not been the greatest. So, yeah, this episode about mythology, and Lou's gonna talk to us about it for an hour, so enjoy. Here we go.
So I do want to do this diplomatically, like democracy. Do you want me to start with the time Thor cross-dressed for his hammer, or do you want me to talk about the time a striptease saved Japan from winter?
I mean, they both sound really great, so...
That's what my thought was.
This is a democracy.
Yeah,
Pick something.
man.
It's your topic. You start
All
with whatever
right.
you want.
I guess we'll start with that striptease from Japan. AKA the story of Amaterasu in the cave. I'm just gonna say this now. I'm probably gonna mispronounce things. I'm not Japanese. I could barely speak English proper, but we're gonna try.
Here we go.
Just a preface. It's mythology. There's a million versions of every myth. So, this might not be the version you've heard before. Maybe it is.
Maybe it isn't.
But anyway, story of Amaterasu and the cave. So, back during Japanese creation myth, there were two gods, Izanagi, Izanami. Izanagi is the husband, made Japan. He and Izanami together made all the gods, the exact method you'd expect. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We'll talk about Zeus later. However, Izanami gave birth to a fire god. Not good for one's health. She died later because she got burnt. He goes down to the underworld to try and save her. Finds her rotting in the underworld known as Yomi. Obviously, he doesn't want to keep married to a corpse, so he books it out of hell. She chases him. He locks the cave. Izanami threatens to kill 1,000 people if he doesn't open this cave up and come back for her. He just says, I'm going to make 1,500 every day. You have fun down there. Now, that was just a very brief version of the creation myth. We can do that later. But from that, he decides he needs to clean himself up because he went to Yomi, cleans himself up in some pure water, cleans one eye. Amaterasu pops out of nowhere, fully clothed, fully grown. It's like, that's it. Washes the other eye, god of the moon, named, where the hell is the name? Tsukuyomi. Probably butchered that. When he washes his nose, he gets Susanoo, the god of storms. This one, mainly Amaterasu and Susanoo, So, the second one eventually just gets banished out of heaven straight out. Probably for being too rambunctious, because he's the god of storms. Not a good temper on someone like that. But before he leaves... Yeah, it's a god of storms. What'd you expect? Someone dainty and quaint? Nah. So...
Maybe a plot twist, but...
Yeah, it's like you make the volcano god just cool, level-headed, and calm or something.
I mean, that would work because they are cool and calm most of the time. It's just they kind of pop off. So he's a short guy. That's what it is, because they're known for their tempers.
Napoleon!
He's really, really short.
He's Napoleon!
And he just pops off every once in a while.
Yeah, just give me a minute. We'll get to his temper tantrum. But anyway, before he goes, basically his dad told him, go to hell. You're banished to the overworld / Yomi. Depends on the story. Usually Yomi. But before he leaves, he decides, let's say goodbye to my sister. His sister, Amaterasu, ain't his biggest fan. She just thinks something's gonna happen. She's suspicious. And he tries to stop that by saying, hey, how about we just have a little fun, Let's have a god-making contest. So, Susanoo took her necklace. Amaterasu took his sword. Amaterasu makes 3 gods. Susanoo makes 5. And Amaterasu says, I win because my necklace made more gods. Susanoo, being the calm, level-headed, good man he is, throws a temper tantrum, just starts insulting Amaterasu, destroys her rice fields, and threw a flayed pony at a loom of hers, which made one of her attendants die of a heart attack. Big
Jesus.
man child Susanoo. Now, because of all of that, Amaterasu is angry, she's upset, she's mourning now, and she locks herself in a cave. Amaterasu, being the goddess of the sun, I had to do that at least once, there's no sun anymore, and everything's gone to winter. No sun, no warmth, nothing good. So now, this story diverges into 3 different ones I've heard. One time, they just put a mirror out in front of the cave, said, "Oh man, look, we got a great new sun god from Gods Are Us. Look at that, amazing!" And just like going on about, "Oh man, this is magnificent." She pokes out of the cave, sees like this beautiful shimmering light, leaves to go see what the hell is happening, sees her reflection, and very quickly the gods just shove a massive rock in the cave so she can't get back in.
Wow.
Wait,
Damn.
so can you tell me what
Yeah,
gods are?
as soon as she got out, they just stuffed a rock in the mouth of the cave. No, not again.
Nope.
A second version instead starts with the gods putting a bunch of roosters in front of the cave, hoping, hey, maybe she's been Pavloved. You know, she'll hear the roosters and go, "Oh, I gotta go up in the sky. It's morning time." This didn't work. Wonder why.
She'll be.
Then, after they tried with the roosters, then they did the mirror. That didn't quite work. Then, we get to the striptease that everyone's been waiting for. So, I know you were waiting. Don't you try to deny this.
I
Anyway,
mean, now I'm just
so
really curious about the Odds Are Us. Like, where can I go to get a god?
gods
Right?
are us.
I want a god.
Where
They're
is that?
franchised. Which one? Anyway,
Then that will get me out of my finals.
ain't none of them gonna do that one for you except Athena.
Damn it.
You gotta go to Greece for that one. 3 to 6 week shipping.
God damn it.
It's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that because I'm literally writing a spell where she's like needed to use. I'm like, hey. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no worry. This is all just ballistic anyway. We don't care that much. Ame no Uzume. I probably butchered that one too. The goddess of of the dawn. She's uh like an underling to Amaterasu. Not an underling, but like she's the dawn. Amaterasu's the sun. They got a bit of a relationship there. Employee manager sort of deal. She's also the goddess of other things as well. But because of this event, she's also known as a goddess of like revelry and some theater. Because a god, it's usually not described which, basically goes to her and says, "Look, Amaterasu's locked herself in a cave. She's not coming out. Everything's horrible. I need you to try and get her out of the cave." First instinct was to go over there, throw a huge celebration. She starts strip teasing. All the gods are like, "Oh God, this is amazing," and just everything's in an uproar. Amaterasu is like, "Jesus Christ," who doesn't even exist yet. What the hell is happening outside? She goes outside, she sees the roosters, she sees the mirror, and she sees the almost naked goddess outside and comes out the cave. Take that as you please. Anyway, then she comes out, they lock the cave again, same as the first myth. There's also a third and final version I've heard, where they skipped right to the dancer. She put the mirror outside the cave, started the celebration. All the racket got Amaterasu to look outside, sees herself in the mirror, and the mirror draws her out, and then they lock the cave.
Jesus.
Then she's all ashamed, like, "I'm sorry for doing that, kind of selfish of me," and everyone's perfectly fine with it because she's a sun goddess. It's like, we get it. It's fine. Susanoo Oh is a prick. And that's the story that a striptease saved Japan.
Awesome.
Probably.
Interesting.
Listen, I could talk all day about Greek myths, but I feel like it's more fun just to go with the weird, wacky, wild.
I think that's as weird as wacky as you can get in Japan, anyway. Was it Japan, right?
Yeah, that was Japan.
Okay, thank you.
Amaterasu, Susanoo O, Ame no Uzume.
Sounds like
He's a
names
Nagi
from
Nagi.
Sounds like names from Persona.
Actually, several of these characters have shown up in Persona games and related series,
Interesting.
such as the Shigami Tensei series, or however you say it. I've never played that one before myself, so I don't know.
Interesting. Nice fact.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see that very often. They'll pull in gods. Even Celtic gods, goddesses, and ancient heroes will show up in those games as well.
Awesome.
Fun
I'll have
fact.
to look out
you-
for that while I'm watching it.
Yeah, but if you watch anime, sometimes there's a trope of women who are headless. That's a Doahan, and that's an Irish thing.
Of course,
Fun fact.
Of course, it's an Irish thing to be headless.
What's that supposed to mean? I still got my head on my shoulders. It
You
just
think
doesn't
it'd be
work
a
too
French
well.
thing?
Jesus.
Listen, he's not wrong. When the
I'm
French
not
are in a war,
wrong.
it's like hello,
No,
kill.
he's not.
When the French are fighting the French, it's like Vietnam.
Off with their
Stranger
heads.
speaking?
Off with your head.
Off with your head. Off with your head. Off with your head. You get to stay. Off with your head. It's like I changed my mind. Off with his head.
It's like Duck Duck Goose, but for like head chopping.
What, you think that's how Marie Antoinette died?
Guillotine,
They
guillotine,
just
guillotine, guillotine,
put it-
guillotine, 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 so there's no goose.
Wheel of Fortune. Just all but one slot is guillotine. The one slot's like burnt to death or something. Like, come on, burning. Yeah. Just the audience going off in the background.
You have a game show like that. Only you would come up with a game show like that.
Listen, man, it's basically murder trivia party, but in real life. And no one wins.
That sounds great.
Let's not
We should
encourage
play
him.
that sometimes.
Let's not encourage him. That's a mistake I've learned only once, and I never did it again.
You're basically you're putting nitroglycerin in a paint mixer, my friend.
I know. Leave me alone.
I wasn't even talking to you. I was talking to Lemon and the rest.
That's fair. Can aim it at me too. That's fine.
Okay, Poppy.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, after that whole event with Amaterasu, the cave, and the stripper, then they made sure Susanoo went through with the banishment. He got kicked out. He went to Earth, and on his way to Yomi, he actually ran into some old couple who had an issue. They had 8 daughters. Now they had 1 daughter because Yamata no Orochi, this big 8-headed dragon, was just demanding a daughter to eat every day. Susanoo showing some strange kindness in his life for once instead of breaking everything and literally getting rid of the sun for a little while, decides, I'll help these old people. That's such a dramatic change from, yeah, let's just, I've snuffed out the sun on accident, to, I'll help some elderly people. Of course, he was feeling ashamed and everything, you know? He was like, man, I didn't expect this to go this far. Because the thing is, he's a god of storms. He can't really control that temperament, personality, you know?
Talk
Just
about
like
a
real
change of heart.
personalities. That's just kind of how it goes. But anyway, so he hears about Yamata no Orochi. Soon enough, they're going to have to put the other child up to die. So he hid the child. Some versions he turns her into a comb and sticks her in his hair. Other versions, I think they just tuck her away somewhere. And the old people put a massive bucket of sake outside. Sometimes 8 because it's an 8-headed dragon, but I've also heard 1. Dragon gets drunk, passes out, and Susanoo goes outside and just slices the guy to pieces. You would think he'd wake up after the first head gets cut off. Nah, bastard's drunk as a skunk. But as he's just chopping up this dead body like it's a Mad Max film, he cuts the dragon's tail. I don't know where the hell that's set on an eight-headed dragon, but cuts the tail, and for some reason there's just a sword in there. The Kusanagi no Tsurugi. Tsurugi? Also known as the grass cutter, grass cutting sword, and decides this is my way back into the good books. Goes back and to give Amaterasu that sword, which I'm not gonna say it again. You can't make me. As a sign of like, look, I'm sorry. I'm, you know, this is big problem. I'm sorry about what I did to you. Have this knife. But he also, in some versions of the story, said, I'm not becoming a better person. This is just my way of saying sorry. I can't help myself. After
Can't
that,
help myself for being a prick.
listen, I'm gonna be a prick, but I'm gonna be a nice prick. Here's a knife. That's how you get stabbed in the night.
Yeah, right.
But after that series of events, the grateful couple decides this guy should definitely marry Susan. Definitely marry a daughter that he saved, Kushinada Hime. There's a dash between the Kushinada and Hime. But now he's married and everything. He made his amends. Izanagi then presented him with one more thing. Hold on a second.
Okay. Blah, 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 blah. As we wait for him to get back.
Sorry, my brother interrupted me despite the fact I told everyone that I'm doing a podcast.
I can edit that, it's fine. No worries.
Yeah. But, like I was saying, then Izanagi decided, I got a job for you. You have to go to Yomi, aka the cave to hell. And he accepted the position and now just guards the gate to the land of the dead.
It's a hell of a gig.
Yeah, let's just talk about that. Someone gives birth to fire, dies, the husband goes to hell to get her back, sees that she's decrepit and ugly, runs away, causes people to die, washes her, births children from washing himself. Some of the kids get in a fight. The sun goes away for a while. A stripper is needed in order to save the sun in Japan from an infinite winter. Then the guy who did it, then they start working it back on getting him booted out. He kills a dragon. He kills a dragon to prove that he's sorry for what he did, and now he has to guard the gate to hell as a final job.
And marries the kid too.
And he marries the child that the daughter that he saved. It's not a child. It's an old couple. She's probably an adult.
Still, can you imagine like you're about to die and then this dude saves you and then like the parents are like, yeah, you're gonna marry him now, and you're just like, all right.
I'm sure she was happy too, though. It's like, you saved me from a dragon. This is how all medieval myths go. Knight goes, stabs dragon, marriage.
I mean, yeah. That's accurate.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
Right, man,
That's a hell of a redemption arc, you gotta admit.
It's
like,
a hell
he
of a
went
story.
from one of the lowest lows that you could possibly do of accidentally the next ice age for a little while. Well, it was just winter, but still. He got rid of the sun for a little bit. Then he gets booted out of heaven. He's supposed to go to hell, but he takes a break on Earth, I guess, on his way there. Kills a super famous eight-headed dragon. Gets a super famous sword, which is believed to still be in possession of the Japanese imperial family to this day. It's one of the three treasures of the imperial family, along with a magatama, which is like a bead of a necklace, and a mirror, the same mirror that was used in the Amaterasu myth. But just finds this sword. It's like, here, I'm sorry, and now he guards hell. That's a redemption arc. Put that in anime, it'll sell.
That's a hell of a
I'm
story.
sure it's already an anime. If it ain't, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that was like for like Lemon said, the girl.
Yeah, for the daughter.
The daughter. She's like, oh
Because
shit.
also, my favorite thing about that, she turns, Susanoo turns her into a hair comb and sticks her in his hair. Do you think she saw the whole event? Like Susanoo just this just basically putting this dragon through the mincer because he's killed 7 girls and is gonna kill an 8th, and just starts slicing this guy up. Do you think she thinks that he's a hero, or that he's the anti-villain that she needs to marry in order to save the family? What's the plot?
Yeah.
Plot twist.
I feel like that's kind of one of those things where like probably didn't have it like a choice, and like her parents were like, "No, this dude saved you. He turned you into a comb. You gotta be grateful." And
He
she's kinda
avenged
like,
your
But
7
I don't
sisters.
wanna.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's a good
typical
thing he never
response.
mentioned the whole plunging the world into darkness for a while thing. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, real deal breaker.
I
Can't
don't
even
know.
talk today. Jesus.
I don't like going outside myself. It's too bright, too hot.
I mean, lately it hasn't been. He's been
It's nice out
raining.
today.
Yeah, that's true, but also
It wasn't
like
bad.
storms are coming and stuff, so. Woohoo.
All right. So now we'll go from one of the furthest ends of Asia to a very far end of Europe, and we'll go back to that cross-dressing story about Thor and the hammer.
Hey.
No segue, just movement.
I think is this the one you told me?
I believe I told you this before, Poppy.
Okay, then
But
I might remember
we're doing it again.
Okay.
And you can't stop me. I can't stop me.
I wasn't planning on it.
But this story starts with Thor waking up, and very unfortunately, Mjolnir's just gone. I'm surprised that man didn't spoon his hammer. He loved it so much, but it's gone the next morning. And, like a logical person, despite the fact that he was a war crazy kind of guy sometimes, he instantly assumed Loki, that trickster god, definitely stole his hammer. But amazingly enough, Loki didn't. But he did threaten to beat Loki to death if he did not find Mjolnir for him. Some stories also say that Loki did it out of his goodwill, like, here, I'll help you find Mjolnir. Loki is
Unlikely.
a person. I doubt
Yeah,
that.
unlikely for Loki to do that, but okay.
Oh, and also, very brief side note: the Marvel movies say Loki and Thor are related. They are not in the step like Loki's the adoptive brother. He's not. He is Odin's blood brother, I believe. So, not even blood related to Thor. If anything, he's blood uncle, whatever that means.
Marvel, you lied to us.
You bastards!
I mean, the only Loki I know is from Supernatural, so anyway.
Of course it is.
Oh, no.
I imagine there was a horrible joke in there that I don't get. But back on
Remove
topic.
them.
Loki decides to go over to Freya, takes her cloak of feathers. Sometimes he asks for it and she gives it. Sometimes he just takes it because he's Loki and he doesn't give a goddamn. Any goddamn. And flies off all across the 9 realms until he makes it to where Mjolnir is. Unfortunately, that's in the castle of a frost giant. I don't remember the giant's name, unfortunately, but he's a Jotun. Jotun? Jotun. Big ice giants, bad news bears. And
Bad
he goes
news
back
bears.
to it is. He goes back to Valhalla, I believe, wherever all the gods join up to talk about things. They start discussing ideas of how the hell do we get that hammer back. Somebody I believe Heimdall, which is a different god, we might get to him, depends on if I can find a good story, says we should take Thor, dress him up as Freya because the Jotun wanted to marry Freya. Like that's a very common request is to marry Freya. Dress Thor up like Freya, put him in the bridal gown and everything, and send him off to the Jotun and just have him get his hammer back. And obviously, Thor doesn't want to do this. It'd make him look unmanly. Everybody else is on board. Freya's on board. Loki's on board. Eventually, he gets Thor reluctantly on board, and they dress him up all pretty. Loki, being capable of shapeshifting, just shapeshifts into a handmaiden or like a bridesmaid or whatever for this brand new Freya that they've just made, and they go riding off to the place with the giants. I can't remember its name, unfortunately. So they're invited in, and obviously this guy just got Freya as a wife. Celebration, alcohol, more alcohol, even more alcohol. It's Norse. What do you want? And this whole time, Loki has to keep explaining to the head honcho of this band of Jotuns why the hell Freya, the fairest of the goddesses and everything, is drinking an ocean of mead, is constantly growling at him whenever he makes eye contact with her, and has a magnificent beard. Glorious thing, but why the hell is it on Freya? And it's not a bad question. But eventually, after like all these like questionable things that Loki weasels their way through, he eventually says, "Hey Freya, you want to see Thor's hammer?" Gives it to Freya, and Thor just starts busting Jotun heads, just starts slaughtering them all. They're all dead, and they go back home. The end. Like with many
Jesus.
myths, it ends with Thor beating something to death.
Don't all things end with
Sounds
Thor
like
beating
Thor.
somebody to death?
If it's Norse, somebody's got to die, and sometimes it's on accident. Sometimes.
I mean, it's
Speaking
true.
of, that's a fun segue to talk about the time Loki ruined everything. Like the big one this time, not just all the other times too.
I
So,
feel like it's just a running theme of Norse
he's just
mythology
a
of just
bad dude.
Loki ruins everything. The Norse mythology.
Now, everybody hates Loki. Cue the sitcom theme and everything.
Yes.
He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Just popping up in random places, annoying the hell out of everyone.
All of the Norse
But
gods are just like, shut the hell up!
Loki just moves. He just tilts paintings like 1 degree shifted, so it's just enough to notice, but it's like nothing at all. And so it takes you a little while to notice, and you eventually notice it. It's like, how the hell long has that been tilted?
Now you sound
But
like one of
anyway,
our coworkers.
are they obsessed with keeping things straight and lined and pretty?
Yes. Oh, good
Anyway,
lord.
back to the myths. So, this is probably one of the most famous myths out of the Norse everything. It's also one of Loki's last myths. Because this is basically one of the worst things that you can do. So, this is the time that he got Balder stabbed in the chest.
Okay then.
Okay.
Listen, no segues, just knowledge. We go.
No
But
segue.
so this all starts when Balder, one of Odin's sons, the god of basically all the nice things, like the sun is like the sun slash light, I believe. God of light, not sun, but god of light, brightness, all that fun, beautiful things. He starts having dreams that he's gonna die. So does his mother. So he and his mother go out to try and find out what the hell is gonna happen to Balder. While the mother is just goes the paranoid route and makes everything on Earth swear I'm never gonna hurt Balder. The only thing that she doesn't make do that is mistletoe, because she thought mistletoe's harmless, it'll be fine. Minor spoiler, it's not going to be fine. But because everything else said, yeah, no, we'll never hurt Balder. Basically, all the gods started having fun chucking random things at Balder because he can't be hurt. So the
Aw.
gods would just chuck things at Balder for funsies, and he would just be completely unfazed. Like Odin would throw his like big old magical spear Gunder at him, nothing. You know? But eventually, Loki figures out mistletoe can kill Balder. So what does Loki do but go out, get some mistletoe, make a spear out of it, and to make it even worse, gives it to uh what is it? Balder's brother, Hodir. Hodir is blind. So he gives this blind guy the one thing that can kill his brother and says, "Hey, why don't you join in on the fun, buddy? Chuck that at Balder." And it goes right in the man's chest and just
Oh no.
he's done. But because he gave the spear to Hodir, nobody knew it was Loki. So originally
That's
they killed.
horrible.
Oh yeah, no. Just imagine basically someone getting shot by their blind brother on accident because someone said that there was a burglar in their house. That's basically what's happened. It's like, oh God, what have I done? And then I believe Thor just offs him right after because it's like, you killed the god of light. I, I just want to ask this: how much mead did Thor have before that? The man is blind. You think he went feeling out for a tree that said in Braille on it, mistletoe tree, do not touch, and somehow fashioned a spear out of it? But
Oh, good
he's
lord.
still the man who threw the spear.
Also, like, why mistletoe? Like, why was that the one thing like Bob
because
skipped over? He was like, meh.
because his
Anything.
mother, Frigg, his mother Frigg thought, mistletoe's harmless. It'll be fine. It can never do anything to Balder, because, like most of the Norse gods, he was like a strong man, you know? It wasn't like he was some weak, frail guy. Mistletoe couldn't hurt him. It
Psych!
did.
The biggest
Sorry, I
psych in
think-
history.
But that's not the end of it, because eventually, uh, in a different myth, there's this big party being thrown, right? And Loki decides to kill one of the attendants for whatever reason. I believe he was just annoyed at people hearing that, oh man, this attendant's great. So all the other guys threaten to beat his ass if he doesn't leave the party. But he uses his Odin's blood brother stat to basically just say, listen, Odin, we're blood brothers. You gotta share a horn of mead with me. So he gets let back in and just starts insulting every single god at the party, and they can't do anything because he's allowed to be here until he finishes that cup, I'm pretty sure, or something like that. And eventually, at one point, he basically just says, and by the way, I killed Balder, turns into a salmon, jumps in a river, and gets the hell out of Dodge.
I mean, I would do the same thing.
Later, they found they found out how to make a net. They caught Loki, and as his punishment for killing Balder, they got two of his kids and his wife, turned one into a wolf, had the one that got turned into a wolf kill the one they didn't turn into a wolf, used the entrails of the non-wolf son to tie Loki to a rock, put a snake above Loki that would constantly drip venom in his eyes, and his wife was given the task: keep this bowl and make sure. Sorry for that small interruption. Internet's bad. Everyone's stuck in their house. Everyone's got the sickness. We're all coming down with the sickness. Ooh, wah, ah, ah, ah. But where I
Apologies,
left
my
off is
friends.
just the last. I'm your friend.
It's debatable.
Alright.
The rest of these guys are. You maybe not so much.
Yeah, I'm the anti-hero in the story that the heroes have to work with, but everyone thinks that he's just a dick.
I mean, you're
know
not
you.
wrong.
That last thing I was gonna say though, Loki's wife has to hold the bowl over his eyes so he doesn't get venom in him. When she has to go empty the bowl, that's when earthquakes happens because Loki's freaking out underground about having venom in his eyes. You would too. Don't deny it.
I mean, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's basically where Loki is removed from the mythos until Ragnarok happens, which he gets unbound and hilarity ensues.
Of course it does.
We'll save the end of the world for a different podcast.
That's its whole episode.
We just spent a whole episode talking about how the world is ended. I mean, I believe the Aztecs and the Mayans. Let me pull it up real quick. But to one of them, just where is it? That's Polynesian. I have a metric ton of tabs open. But one of them had, I'm gonna tell this from memory because I don't think I have it open anymore. Oh wait, hold on. Is this it? No, damn. But to the best of my memory, in either Aztec or Mayan legend, after the gods had created the earth, uh, how the earth was made, a bunch of gods, including Quetzalcoatl and uh, Quetzalcoatl, is something like that. I'm gonna Google it while I'm talking. But they were trying to make humanity, and every time they made something, it fell into the ocean, and a massive monster under the ocean just ate everything they made. So eventually they had to kill it. One of the gods lost their leg during the accident,
Jesus.
but they killed it and used it to make all the land. But that's actually why, let me see, of the Aztecs. But that's actually basically the earth was constantly thirsting for blood after that because it wasn't dead, but it was dead enough where you can make all the land out of it, but it still kind of wanted blood sometimes. You know how it is.
Yeah. Go figure,
But
it's mythology. Of course they would want blood of some sort.
yeah, but uh, so how it went. There was the first sun, which was made by Tezcatlipoca, also known as Black Tezcatlipoca, who made the first sun. Now, the first sun in some myths was only a half sun. That's because he's the guy who lost his leg. In other versions, it's just a dark sun because he's a night god or like a god of darkness, one of the two. And back then, the first humans were these giant people. And eventually, at one point, he just got upset with humanity for a reason I can't remember, and just made the world rain jaguars that killed all the first humans. No, that's not an exaggeration. He made it rain jaguars.
To kill all the humans.
Yes, but he made it rain jaguars. Well, just cats at the time. They didn't invent dogs yet. So
That's
the second,
a 2020 apocalypse thing. We'll just start having fucking jaguars come raining down at us.
just Mexico and Central America just start catapulting
Already in the fourth
jaguars into
level
America.
Don't jinx it.
God.
I'm out of spare lives. I can't handle a jaguar apocalypse again. But
Again?
Again.
we'll get to that in a minute.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
the second sun was made by Quetzalcoatl. Uh, that time the humans were normal sized, and the thing is, there's two different versions of this myth. One version of the myth said these humans were not pious to the gods. They like would insult the gods or something like that. They just were pricks to the gods. So they decided, screw you, started a massive storm and just blew all of them into the trees, and that's where monkeys come from. Other versions have it, uh, Tezcatlipoca, that first god, was jealous and basically threw Quetzalcoatl off his throne and basically just threw the sun out of whack, and just hurricanes and floods happened, and the people who survived were the people who went into the trees and went and turned into monkeys.
People were just like, F this, I'm out of here, see ya.
Basically, it was either you guys are pricks, chucks into palm tree, or oh god, the world is ending, runs up palm tree. Those were the two options.
Runs up a palm tree.
Or whatever trees were there at the time. I don't know. First thing I thought of was palm trees. But third son was made by water water god. Let's see, the rain god.
Water guy. That sounds like a superhero. Really, really, really bad superhero.
I'm pretty sure that's a Mega Man character. Waterman.
That would be probably a superhero.
He probably exists. But the rain god, Tlaloc, Tlaloc, pronounce it as you will. Then you had the normal sized humans again. These guys were a little nicer. But for some reason, which unfortunately is not explained on this website I have, I'll get more reliable sources in the future if we do this episode again, fix some mistakes. But Quetzalcoatl just decides to make it rain fire, literally rain fire, and just burn everything down.
Because
in
why
this
not?
version, the people who survived became turkeys, butterflies, and dogs. I don't know why those three in specific, but those are the three they said. But
I mean, it is a quite
the fourth
weird
son,
combination.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe that was just the ones that they had around the most. It's like, oh man, these must be our ancestors. There's so many of them. Because God knows there were enough sun cycles. Anyway, the fourth son was another water son. The goddess. Why did I hear myself echo there? You know what? I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm not even gonna try with this one. Shall shoot. I'm not gonna try. I'm done. The sister and wife, unsurprisingly, of Tro, Tro,
You got
Rain
this.
Man, Tlaloc. I don't know. I can't pronounce these things. This language is so strange to me. I'll work on it in future episodes. Then,
Well, yeah.
one time, Tezcatlipoca again ruined this world. He's ruined three of the four sons. He basically said, listen, you only care about humans because they worship and love you. And she got so upset she started crying blood for a very long time and drowned out the world.
Jesus.
The people who didn't die were turned into fish, which for once makes sense.
Wow, something that actually makes sense.
Then
Yep.
we finally have our current son, the fifth son. So, this one, let's see, what is it? I'm trying to dig this out of memory right now.
You're good.
So, the version I know is Quetzalcoatl was tired of losing all his humans. At this point, 4 batches of humans were just ruined. Someone left him in the oven too long. So he decides to go down into the underworld, takes all the bones of the old humans from the underworld, and hikes back up to recreate them. The god of the underworld, whose name evades me at the moment, isn't a fan of people stealing his bones. So he has his minions just make a pit, like a pitfall, for him to fall into, and Quetzalcoatl gets distracted by a bird or something, like a quail, I believe, in the original, and just slips into this hole. And the thing is, Quetzalcoatl is like some serpentine deity. So this basically big old feathered snake slips and falls into a hole, breaks all the bones on impact, and just picks them all back up, gets out of the hole, goes to recreate the humans. He becomes the fifth son, and that's the one we currently have.
Damn.
And the reason they mentioned the bones breaking, that's why people are of different heights. Because when he put them back together, they weren't all uniform like they were before.
Well, thanks for that. A reason I'm freaking short.
Yeah, blame Tezcatlipoca. He's the man who screwed over your chances of being a giant because he wanted to summon leopards from the jaguars from the sky.
Alright, well, I guess I can forgive him if he wanted to summon jaguars. I guess that's okay.
I mean, I guess you could also say like the guy who left the humans in the oven too long. Apparently, he didn't like crispy humans because we've had fine humans. If he didn't be like, nah, these are too crispy for my taste. That would get me like hell.
Man, the bottoms are burnt.
Damn it,
Yeah,
this is the third
I
batch
like their
today,
crispy little
guys.
hands.
Fun fact, Tetsukawa is actually very against human sun tanning because he thinks that they were just baked just right to his liking. He hates how they're cooking themselves. He likes his humans slightly chewy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sorry.
This episode is
See,
already a
so that's
cluster. It's
why you're short.
That's why she's short. Because some some feathered serpent got distracted by a bird and somehow fell into a pit.
and
I
I'm
mean,
salty.
I could see that though, just because like I'm a very ungraceful person, and I mean, yeah, like I
But
would do that. So
but the thing is, I would have to assume if he can like as a god, I would assume that he either is more intelligent or like something. He could turn into the sun. You know, I'm sure he could at least float slightly. How did he fall in a pitfall?
He's
Did he
clumsy like the
actually
rest of us.
did he actually move like a snake? That's the only thing I can think of. He must have just slithered on the ground like a snake.
that was
Wait, I think he has. Hold on, let me
it was
Google a picture of
like
Quetzalcoatl. I think he has.
I think I've seen it before because the name sounds super familiar.
Yeah, Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca are the only two that I think I can even slightly pronounce correctly,
I mean, you're
which ain't
probably
saying much.
close.
I'm probably as close as I'll be able to get because I also, I believe I told you about this before, Poppy, but I have pronunciation issues. So for the longest time, I couldn't pronounce the letter I still can't. But also, I heard everything wrong when I was growing up because I got ear infections a lot. So I said everything wrong, which is why
yeah.
I joked about earlier. I can't even speak English like right, let alone all these other languages that I'm trying to do, like good old Aztec and whatever
Well,
the
if
Aztecs
for
spoke.
for
What
reference,
do you
you're doing a great job.
I think I'm doing okay for a man who's incompetent and doing this all off the seat of his pants.
That's what the podcast is, buddy.
Because the thing is, like, some people are like, oh, you got to prepare for a podcast. Like, you do this super huge amount of research. I'm going off my prior knowledge and interest and a bunch of wikis I have open up of a hodgepodge of different things. And I'm just going.
I mean, that's kind of what we've done for the past how
And,
many
like,
episodes now?
because also my plan is, like, I'm just going to passively over time, like, educate myself on how to pronounce these things right. So I can at least, like, show I'm getting better.
You'll get there.
Like the only one I feel like I could pronounce well if I'm trying. I talk fast, so it's hard to pronounce even worse. The only one I have some confidence in is Japanese
Yeah,
because
you killed those names, so good job.
oh yeah, like Susano o Amaterasu,
Yeah,
Ame no Uzume, all them. But
all the persona sounding names.
yeah, well they also add all different sorts of gods in Persona.
Yeah.
But what was it? When I was younger, I went to a elementary school which had Japanese classes, Japanese exchange students. And I believe I told you this before, Poppy, who's muted herself because she doesn't want to deal with me anymore.
I'm
Don't blame
snacking
her.
on a Heath bar. I'm hungry.
Well, I'm eating pasta right now, but I'm not muting myself. Yeah. So I went to that school, and I was really good friends with Japanese students who I thought were people who freshly moved in, you know? Turns out they were exchange students, but I didn't learn that till 3 years later when they went to Japan. But I like, oopsies. But
Hi.
I enjoyed talking with them, interacting with them. I considered them my closest friends and everything. Like I helped them with their pronunciations and everything. Because whenever you try and pronounce a different language, you will basically never get it right until you've like tried real hard at it. You know, like there's a bunch of nuances for different things. Like last night, I was contemplating adding some Polynesian mythology to this podcast, but I don't have enough confidence in myths because I know very few. Might buy a Polynesian myth book. But I actually looked up like a minor guide of how to pronounce Hawaiian, which is one of over 1,000 places that you could consider Polynesian.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually looked up a little guide just to try and deal with pronouncing things right. It's not as hard as you think, but you can never guess a language, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah. But I was looking it up just because I was contemplating telling the story of like Pele and everything. Uh,
Mm-hmm. I
thing with
think I've I
with
think I've heard that one before.
yeah, there's two I was going to talk about. Thing is, I want to work on pronouncing a bit because Polynesian legends and everything are still. That's also why I didn't involve Hinduism in this. They're still like like popular in practice and everything, which makes it a little more dangerous because Hinduism, for example, it's still being practiced. I believe it's the oldest religion that's still in practice to this day. Maybe Islam is older, but it's one of, if not the oldest, still in practice. And obviously, it's still in practice. So, before I start talking those myths, I want to get confident in pronouncing and confident in stories. Because also, thing that always confused me, like uh, very often there are silent letters in Hindi.
Yeah, the language. Wow, language
Language is a
itself
bitch.
is
You
yeah.
can't even English now while you're talking about the language.
Again,
Shut up.
I I can barely speak English proper.
I can't. But then again, I choose not to.
Yeah, but that was just a bunch of like famous, like those are some of the popular myths, rather like common, a very famous Japanese myth, a very famous Norse myth, and what's I guess a very interesting Aztecan myth because I don't think Aztecan is as famous anymore. I don't know if it's like still popular per se, like as stories to tell,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
because some of the stories obviously they're no longer used to explain. Well, why do we have winter, Dad? Well, you see, son, one time a hurricane man pissed off the sun goddess. She went in a cave and we had to get a stripper to get her out. You know, you could say that, sure. But nowadays, that's more, those ancient myths are more like moral stories. But the ones that
I'm
are still
telling my
practiced
kids
are
that
like
now.
other things. Say again?
I'm gonna tell my kids that now and be like, well, you see, hon, um, sun god went away, and so we needed to get a stripper to get her out. So we gotta wait for the stripper to come in like January. Then we'll be fine.
Fair warning, it was just a strip tease. To my knowledge, she never got fully naked.
Ah.
She might have gotten close, and I'm pretty sure if they didn't stop her early, that goddess of Reveille probably would have gone beyond that point. But they stopped her early, I believe.
Thank God.
Unlike Amaterasu, Ame no Uzumi is much more relaxed, carefree. Just Amaterasu being, I believe, the ruler of the heavens after Izanagi stepped down, if I remember proper. I'll look into that a little more too. Uh, but she's prim, proper, the ancestor of the Japanese imperial family. You know, she's like she's dressed to impress. Not strict, but like the stone, everything like that. Ameno Uzume is just she's the golden girl. She's wild. She's probably getting drunk somewhere right now.
I could join her.
I mean, I wouldn't mind getting drunk somewhere if my husband died, to be honest. But
No, no, no. Her husband didn't die.
or whatever you said.
That was
Sorry,
Izanagi.
my
No,
brain is everywhere.
she went into a cave because her brother threw a flayed pony at one of her looms, and someone had a heart attack that she liked.
I
Okay.
mean, it is
Hey
Greek
guys.
mythology, so or mythology in general. There's always
That's
something
that's my
weird.
favorite thing about mythology. If you give it in the most condensed, quick way, like I am, obviously I can go way more in depth and give you like the details and the specifics. But I find mythology far more fun if you give people enough. You know?
Just a striptease of enough.
Yeah, you keep the underwear on, you make them go look online at your Just for Fans account.
Oh my gosh.
This went down a really, really far rabbit hole, so let's bring it back.
People are gonna start writing like
Sweetheart, I'm the Mad
mythology.
Hatter and the Cheshire Cat in a bottle.
I think we have time for one more.
One more legend of myth?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so, do you want to hear? We're leaving this one up to democracy this time. Do you want me to quickly go over Cuchulainn, the Celtic, a very famous Celtic hero who one time had to be calmed with cold water and naked women? Or do you want me to talk about that time some guy fed the Greek gods his son to see if they could tell?
I mean, I want the Celtic one just 'cause I want to hear the Celtic stuff, but
You
Yeah,
just want to go Celts?
I'm down with
I'm here
Celtic.
for the Celtic stuff.
So, this one will be a little longer because Cuchulainn, he's a fairly big figure. Very briefly on Celtic mythology, there's cycles. He's the hero of one of the cycles. So
Poor guy only has
there's
one.
so this cycle that he's like the big guy of is the Ulster cycle. There are other cycles as well that involve other heroes and such like that. But Cuchulainn actually is not his birth name. Let me just quickly look in here. So he was born when the god Lugh, that's right, I named myself after a Celtic god. Sue me. Bring it on. Uh, basically, got this guy's
Please
wife
don't
pregnant.
actually sue him. Let me make that
No,
very clear.
don't sue, just Lugh. But
Oh my god.
he got someone's wife pregnant, and from that you get this little hero who is then technically the son of Lugh, not the guy's actual, uh, sorry, not the girl's actual husband. I'm just gonna skip their names because I want to get into the meat of this. As Cuchulainn was growing up, he got into fights and all that sort of stuff.
He's a troubled
Classic
kid.
children thing. Well, the thing is, this man, he lived an exciting life. He fought kids all the time. He won like a very unfair fight against him. Like I think like 60 kids fought him and he won. But how he got the name Cuchulainn is there was this guy known as Kulan, Kulan. He was a smith who had a big old guard dog protecting him, his house. He accidentally killed the dog and said, "Okay, I'm sorry I killed your dog. I'll protect you like a bodyguard, like your old dog, until we can get another dog trained." And so he took on the nickname Cuchulainn, which means just straight up Hound of Coolin, Kulan, Celtic herd. But that's actually how he got that name. Ku is actually, I believe, if I remember correctly, an honorific title of someone who earned the trust of a dog, but it also just means hound, dog. But uh, during his life, eventually he got this prophecy that he would be, oh, he's going to be famous, super big fights. You're going to be the greatest warrior of your time, but you're going to die young.
Yeah,
Like
no
all
thanks.
good heroes, he dies very young. But
That is a true fact, though. Like,
yeah,
majority
let's
of
be
those
honest.
heroes
Let's
do
be honest
die
here. If
young.
you're not shot to death by the time you're 30, were you a hero?
I mean, unfortunately accurate.
Yeah. So then he tried to get hitched. The girl he was in love with, her father said, "Hey, I got an idea. Go train with this famous woman known as Skaha. Skaha? Something like that. AKA, I believe, the strongest woman in Scotland, at the time at least, who was just extremely famous warrior. He went there, trained with her, uh, along with another kid who we'll mention later. But eventually, Skaha's uh, twin sister, Ivy, uh, came over, and they've been having a feud. They were gonna fight to the death. So Skaha decides, all right, I'm gonna make these two kids pass out. I don't want them to see this, get involved, and get killed or anything. Kukulin, being a protagonist, sleeps it off in like an hour, joins the fight, whoops her ass, and tells her, I'm not gonna kill you, but I do want you to have a kid for me. And she agrees because nobody likes dying. At this point,
If
he
I had
is.
the option of dying or having a child,
Well, I want you to think about this before you say anything now, Poppy. He was 8. Uh, oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. 8 years later, he was 7 at the time that I believe he was 7 or 8. Eh. There might be a big time skip in this story I'm reading. So you might be safe, or I might have to call the FBI after this. I don't know.
point being,
I'm using wikis and everything to like fill in my gaps of memory, and there's just a little time gap here, I believe. Like it doesn't give age numbers, obviously,
yeah.
but
If
he went and
I
trained
were in the middle of
for 8 years.
battle, and if I had the option of, hey, I'm gonna kill you, or B, I want you to have a kid for me, I would much rather die. I don't want to have a kid, thank you.
Yeah, well, I want you to think about something else. You want to know what weapon he got while he was there? Uh, which is the weapon he's like his a very famous weapon of his. Uh, its translated name, I believe, if I remember correctly, is the Spear of Mortal Pain. So think about that for a minute while we
Go
continue.
fucking figure.
Yeah, I'll try if I see the name pop up in this article I'm using to refresh my memory, I'll attempt to pronounce it.
I'll attempt.
But well, look,
I
Celtic
know, I know.
Celtic languages are very difficult languages, which includes Welsh, Irish, and Scottish, and I believe the island of Man is
Language is
also
hard.
considered a Celtic area. But Gaelic, there's at least 3 different ways that I can think of pronouncing Gaelic, and if you don't use that person's version of Gaelic, you're not speaking Gaelic.
Yeah, it's something like that.
That's how all languages, though. You know, there's the local like terms and slang and
Mhm.
accents and pronunciations and all that. Everyone discriminates against how people speak a bit.
All
But
the
anyway,
fun stuff.
so now we skip on to that big, massive battle that's going to make Cuchulainn famous, called the Cattle Raid of Cooley. Just so you know, in case you couldn't tell, all C's in Gaelic are pronounced herd. There might be exceptions to that, but I believe that's like the bog standard rule. But this queen of Connacht, uh, basically, she has a bull. This other city, Ulster, the area, had a bull, and she wanted the bull because if she had both of them, I'm sorry, this area is known as Cooley, I believe. Well, Ulster is the overhanging area, I believe. But she wanted the bull because if she had both of them, she would be super rich because the bulls are twins. They are powerful male bulls. Everyone wants to mate with them to make the best cows possible. If she has 2 of those, that's double the money for her and half the money for Ulster. But there was this thing that happened several years before, which I always laugh when I think of this part. The king of Ulster had his pregnant wife race some horses to prove something. I don't even remember if there was something to prove or if this was just an audacity challenge. And she curses them, the men of Ulster, to in their time of need suffer labor pains.
Jesus.
So, because that old king decided to make his wife, who was pregnant, and she wasn't like 3 months. I think she was 8 months in at least. If not, she was almost there. Race horses. So now this big battle's about to happen, and the only person at the time who can fight is Cuchulainn because he was 17 at the time and therefore not a man. So he single-handedly fends off fends off this army, challenges the warriors to single combat, and just like an anime, despite the fact that the other team cheats on like every possible occasion, I think they used poison weapons. They like 10 guys or 50 guys, or like just a ridiculous amount of guys, punched him all at the same time. He didn't give a shit. Just all the cheating that you can imagine. He was perfectly fine. He kept winning, winning, winning. But
He's fine.
uh listen, man, this is how it always goes. That's how you prove someone's cool. Yeah, that was a horrible joke, and I'm not sorry. But
Did anybody
all this
just see
fighting's
that
happened.
lightning that just happened? Holy crap.
I don't live anywhere near you.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
that's true.
I,
Yeah,
I
you
actually
do.
don't think I. Yeah, I
No,
live close
yeah,
to you, but also I'm nowhere near a
I
window.
did all that too.
Okay, I thought I was crazy. I was like, lightning detected. Oh shit! I looked out my window. Oh my
Oh, yeah,
god.
there was
But also during this, there's someone else who's getting involved. The Morrigan, also known as Morrigan, who is either one goddess or three goddesses who go under that name of war and death and destiny. Three
All
times
of the
during
three
that
things
fight,
you don't want.
yeah, during that big old fight, she turns into an eel to try and trip him. She turns into a wolf to startle a herd of cows to try and trample him, and turns into a heifer to try and trample him herself. And
Jesus
all three times
Christ.
he beats off the animals. That
He's
might be
like,
bad wording.
screw you, especially screw you.
But during a break from the fighting, he finds this old woman who has a bunch of injuries, which happen to be the injuries he gave to the animals, who says, "Hey, you want 3 drinks of milk out of this cow I'm milking?" He takes it, he starts drinking it, like blesses her after every drink, heals all of her injuries, which you'd think he'd notice the magic going on, but I think he just wants some milk, and heals her completely. And then she turns into the Morrigan and then tells him just say, and she reminds him that he's gonna die young, and tells him, and I'm gonna be there for it, and then flies off as a raven.
Jesus.
That was a very popular form for her to take, was a raven. She turned into other animals, but usually she's a raven.
That's
Anyway,
Odin's thing.
yeah, only she is the raven. Anyway, battle keeps going on. There's fighting. He's getting wounded. He's getting tired because he's literally fighting a whole army by himself. But eventually, his old foster father, who I'm not even going to try, Fergus McRoy, uh, or Rourke, I
Close
don't know how
enough.
those O's with the little tallies above them are pronounced, uh, meets him on the battlefield, and he agrees, okay, we're not going to fight right now, and whenever you want, I will not fight you. And then, what is it? Trying to remember a bit.
You're
Then
good.
he gets joined by some of the other warrior kids, because he wasn't the only person trained on that island, and he wasn't the only member of the army who wasn't affected. They're basically the youth corps, you know, kids below the age of 18 who are in the army. Because we're Celtic, and we don't care about the casualties, we care about the victories.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Been
Did you
here
know
for
Julius Caesar was afraid of the Celtics for a while?
I feel like everyone was afraid of the Celtics for a long time.
For a while. Not wrong. But uh so then he decided to take a break because it's like, my buddy's got this. He fell asleep, saw his father Lugh in a dream, who made him pass out for, I believe, 3 days to heal all his wounds. But then when he goes outside, all of the kids are dead. And he just goes ballistic. Now, I haven't mentioned what that means yet. I believe it's referred to as a warp spasm in some stories. Other times, it's just a rage. Just he goes ballistic. Basically, I want you to imagine a ball of meat that is just fueled by anger and will just beat anything to death in its way, friend or foe, and is just going.
Damn.
That's basically what he turns into. Just a ball of meat, anger, and wrath.
Damn.
Again, we don't care about civilian casualties. We care about victory.
Yeah, right.
Who cares if we kill the younglings? At least we win. But
Not the younglings.
eventually, yes, the younglings. Eventually, he, the army retreats. They run away. But I believe in this version, sometimes it's a different event. But sometimes after this battle, he is so like just fur gone. The women of Ulster have to come out just stripped down because he's still only 17 in mind. He gets embarrassed by the fact that they're like, oh God, naked women. I don't want to see this, despite the fact he impregnated a woman at the age of like 9 or 10 or something. And like he was young man, but they had to go out there embarrass him. So the men of Ulster, who have now gotten over their pregnancy issues, which was also what turned the battle. Sorry, I accidentally skipped that one. But basically, the curse ended, and they went to join him, and they had to calm him down by showing him naked women and then dunking him into a cold barrel of water. The first one just burst because when he gets angry, he just gets steaming hot. So it just bursts because of the sheer heat. The second, so they get a second barrel of water, shove them in it, all the water boils off. Then they get a third barrel of water and shove this thing into it again, and it just gets hot, and he just comes out his normal self again.
Jesus.
Which I want you to close your eyes and imagine that scene. Just a metaphoric army of topless women staring on as a horde of well trained military men have to take this super angsty, angry ball of 17-year-old flesh and rage and are basically waterboarding it in ice water. It's the ancient Celtic ice bucket challenge.
The ice bucket challenge,
Right.
but
How many
years and years and years earlier.
how many barrels of water can you boil with nothing but your body temperature?
Watch me.
The man who boils the most gets to sleep with all the women in Ulster. Zeus has entered the chat.
I wonder what the women were thinking. They're just like, what's wrong with this kid?
Also, the women, I don't know what made them think, ladies, I got it. And just go outside and take their tops off.
One of them was probably just like, hey, this sounds a little weird and it's a little crazy, but I think it might work.
I'm imagining some like fat young Ulster guy who has no chance with women runs into like the local tavern. Ladies of Ulster, the men need you to go outside topless to calm a comrade, Cuchulainn, who's gone into an absolute blood fury. That kid was just trying to see some naked women, but actually worked.
He got lucky.
Ancient history brazzers. Oh, I should also mention these myths are all believed to have happened, and this was like these all led up to modern Ireland. So this is because Cuchulainn is technically demigod, I believe. Like, you know, but also when Christianity hit Ireland, well, that's a wrong statement. When Great Britain decided to hit Ireland, they
Yeah.
didn't want all their gods, so all their god stories basically went away or were rapidly changed to famous heroes. But Cuchulainn was already just a hero. You know, he was just a dude, not a god. So that one is actually why it's so well preserved. This story, it didn't get hit by the Great British Hammer. But
Yeah, I think Goddess Brigid is a saint in Christianity as well. That like was adapted from like her goddess Greek. I don't know if she's actually Greek, but I know she's like something to do with Ireland, and they adapted her to fit Christianity.
Brigid,
Yeah.
that is the exalted one of Celtic Ireland. Fertility, poetry, and the dawn.
Mhm. You pronounced her a lot better than I did, but
Yep. Well,
okay,
I'm
but
taking guesses. I think you said like Brigitte,
it's
and I said Brigid because it's a D at the end, and that's I think the only difference.
It's
I
close
I
enough.
think it might have been because a lot of Wiccan practices we've adapted, the goddesses and stuff. I think that might have been changed a little bit. So like uh, being Wiccan, you say Bridget. I
Yeah.
think that might just be a Wiccan thing that they kind of changed it a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, things get modified as things are adapted. I mean, Christ, was it? There's some Japanese goddess. We're not going back to Japan, but this is just a quick little segue. Who was a goddess of prosperity. Back in ancient Japan, rice was money, so she was a goddess of like fertile fields and everything. But then they went to the gold state, like gold was money, so she became like prosperity and wealth and everything, and she's evolved to fit what Japan sees as prosperity at the time.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like that, where it goes and goes and goes. You know, it's like, oh, we need this, made it. All right, we need to change it a little bit. Done. Okay, can you add this too? Finished. It's
Like
like
Done.
it's like people on Tumblr just like taking existing characters and changing something slightly and calling it an OC.
yeah.
It's the whole supernatural fandom in a nutshell.
The Sonic the
Basically,
Hedgehog
yeah.
thing in a nutshell. But we still haven't
Anyway.
talked about how this guy dies.
Well,
Now,
let's hurry up because we're kind of going over a little bit over our time limit here. So,
all right, I'm gonna go quickly because luckily we're at the end anyway, and this is a very quick thing. So basically, a bunch of people don't like Kukulin because he's just super strong, you know. So some of his enemies conspire. They make 3 magical spears that will kill a king. And then another person, some myths it's the Morrigan again, some myths it's just an old lady, offers him dog meat. Now, there's 2 options here. Either he ignores the hospitality rules and is basically a prick to this old lady, or he has to eat the dog meat, which reduces his strength and everything because it like damages his soul or something. Because it's like he swore he'd never eat dog meat, but he did, and now like it's bad. So during a chariot ride, this uh, king throws a spear, nails Cucullin's chariot driver, who is known as the king of charioteers. Second spear nails one of his horses, the king of the horses. Third one nails Cucullin in the stomach, disemboweling him, who he's the king of the warriors. Thing is, this doesn't kill Cucullin straight away, so he decides to go up to a standing stone, take his entrails, tie himself to it, pull out his sword, and just stand there looking like he's ready.
damn.
And the enemies that were there to fight him were too afraid to get close to the body in case he was still alive until a raven landed on his shoulder.
Jesus. Holy shit.
They were so terrified of this guy, despite the fact he was weakened, mortally wounded, and disemboweled, and so weak he had to tie himself to a rock. They were still scared to walk up to the man. And then when Lugh, which is the name of that guy, thank you website for naming him, went over to cut his head off, a big old flash of light happens, and the sword he was holding straight up falls down and cuts off the guy's hand. Then later, Conal Krenak, something like that. Conal Krenak, Krenak. I'm not even
Close
going to
enough.
try any more than twice. Hunted down Lugh and Erk, which is an ally of his, and killed the both of them before sunset.
Holy crap.
And then Ulster wins the war. Hallelujah. That didn't exist yet. And that's the end of that. Did I
And
get things wrong? Probably. Did I
maybe.
get them right enough? Hopefully. Hope you enjoyed this. See you eventually because I don't know when they'll let me back in this house.
Well, we did appreciate you joining us today. It was
I
very
think that's the
interesting.
first time you've ever said that to me.
Oh, shut up. Don't expect any more.
I don't.
So yeah. As always, I am Poppy.
I am Ditto.
And I am Lemon, and this is the Witch's Brew.
Thank you so much, Lou, for coming on, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Yeah,
Bye.
next episode.
I might not. I might be dead.
Bye.
Bye.